Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. And of course, Happy New Year. America lasted yet another 12 months as the best country in the world, but it was a turbulent year, and 2018 could be even more so. So later tonight, advice on how to thrive over the year ahead, no matter what happens. But first, this country's largest state has taken another dramatic step toward disunion and open defiance of the federal government. As of yesterday, California is now a sanctuary state. It's the nation's first. All police statewide in California are banned from asking about a suspect's immigration status or cooperating with federal immigration officials. Landlords are banned from reporting the legal status of their tenants. Colleges can't monitor the immigration status of the kids they enroll. These new measures augment the state's many existing laws, all designed to enable illegal immigration. Illegals in California already are entitled to receive a driver's license, in-state college tuition, free health care for their children, and more. They don't need to have a job. They don't have to know English. It doesn't matter even if they have a history of crime, even violent crime. In California, illegal aliens are now a protected class. And maybe more significant, the state itself is now in direct opposition to this country's most basic laws. 55 years ago this month, Governor George Wallace took his oath of office and pledged resistance to federal authority, effectively declaring Alabama its own country. You know the history. Well, Governor Jerry Brown of California has done something similar this week. Travis Allen is a Republican in the California State Assembly, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Allen, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Tucker.
So California is the biggest state, but it's still a state, not a country. How can it have its own immigration policy? How can it redefine citizenship when it's not a country?
Simply put, it can't. This whole sanctuary state is entirely illegal, and we're actually welcoming Trump and Sessions to come out to California and take them to court.
But how does this end? I mean, when states declare publicly, we're not following the laws of the country, we're making our own laws, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, that sounds like the beginning of a schism, a split, a war.
Without a doubt. I mean, California truly has become the center of the quote-unquote resistance to the president and everything that seems to make common sense in the United States. So with Jerry Brown's recent action of the sanctuary state, Californians don't even agree with this. But the politicians that are running the state in Sacramento, keep in mind the legislature up until just recently was 2/3 Democrat, and all of the statewide officers are Democrat as well, passed this law, even though Californians are absolutely against it.
What's so striking in the specific case of California is that the state is hemorrhaging its middle class. They're moving to neighboring states, north and east, in huge numbers. And it's been written about a lot. The state doesn't seem to care. And even as this happens, seems to be importing a lot of new, much poorer, less educated people. What's the thinking there?
You know, I really don't know that there is a thinking there. You know, a lot of Sacramento and San Francisco exists really in its own bubble. The numbers came out just recently. 243,000 Californians have left in just the last few years, taking about $8 billion with them. And in their place, of course, now we have this burgeoning illegal population, which now, as you mentioned, has protected class status. And it gets very bad because, you see, this is California taxpayer dollars being used to shelter criminals who are committing crimes while they're here. And these aren't small crimes. We're talking assault on a police officer, domestic battery, animal cruelty, possession of concealed weapons, biological agents. I mean, these are real crimes, and yet Jerry Brown and the California Democrats want to essentially ignore federal immigration law and protect these people at California's expense. And that's just wrong.
But ignoring immigration law is not the same as ignoring other kinds of law, because it gets to the deepest question about any country, which is who's a citizen and who's not, who deserves to be here, who doesn't, what are borders. And so California can't, your governor can't expect this to go ignored. You can't just decide you're not going to enforce the borders and expect Washington to do nothing. Is there a showdown coming?
Absolutely there is. I mean, this is truly, it's a bluff. And it's up to the president and Jeff Sessions to step in and call the bluff of Jerry Brown and all the California Democrats that are passing these unconstitutional laws. And keep in mind, too, you know, a lot of people look around the country say, well, you know, everybody in California is liberal, they're Democrat, and that there could be nothing further from the truth. You know, there's actually more Republicans here in California than in any other state. And past that, forget about party lines for a moment. 74% of Californians are absolutely against sanctuary state, including 65% of Latinos.
Well, why would they be for it? I mean, the middle class isn't leaving California because it's thriving. The infrastructure is a mess. The schools are terrible. There's more poverty in the state than any state in the union. I mean, is there a connection, do you think, between the state's immigration policies and the direction of its economy?
Without a doubt. And I mean, really, you have to go back a couple of decades. The California legislature has been dominated by Democrats by 39 of the last 40 years.
Yeah.
The Brown family has run California for 24 of essentially the last 50 years. So you need to look no further than what has been going on successfully. We had driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants, people who are here illegally. And now this is really just the next step. Now it's a sanctuary state. All of these things are unconstitutional, but the California legal system is broken. The California political system is broken. That's why we truly need Washington to hear this message and come to California, sue California, take them to Supreme Court, and let's get the Constitution enforced, because there's a lot of Californians here that want to be protected. Until we get a new governor in the state, you know I'm running to be the next governor of California. Until that happens, we could actually use some help from the national guys.
Well, and it affects the rest of us, too. Assemblyman Allen, thank you very much for joining us.
Without a doubt, Tucker. Remember, what starts here in California usually spreads to the rest of the nation, so let's put a stop to it.
Like a virus. Thanks. Kathy Areu is the founding publisher of Catalina Magazine, and she joins us tonight. Kathy, thanks for coming on. So you can agree or not with the new policy in California, but doesn't it give you pause that California is basically doing what southern states did 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and saying, we're ignoring federal authority. On states' rights grounds, we're not going to acknowledge that your law is valid. Liberals used to be against that. They're not anymore.
It's quite the opposite. I mean, they're allowing the federal government to do what it's supposed to do. The state and local governments are not supposed to handle immigration and ask people for their papers. So if anything, they're giving the authority back to the federal government, not taking it into their own hands.
No, because there are many specific cases where the state of California, as a matter of policy, has refused to hand over, and this law codifies it, criminals to the federal government. They are refusing to cooperate with federal law. They're saying, we don't acknowledge that law is valid. And how is that different from what George Wallace said?
No, it's not like that at all. And as a matter of fact, this is not the first state to become a sanctuary state. Oregon is a sanctuary state, and Oregon is one of the safest states in our union. And sanctuary states and sanctuary cities are some of the safest places to be in the United States.
That's simply not true.
Yes, it is.
Well,
South Carolina is one of the unsafest states.
This has actually been studied at some length.
Right.
Let me ask you, though, California is not one of the safest places. Its cities, in many cases, are a mess. But its economy is in tough shape, and there's more poverty in that state and more homeless people in that state than any other state. And California doesn't house. 67% of all the homeless in California have no shelter. Why the emphasis on coddling people from another country when California's own citizens and residents are suffering in huge numbers?
Well, these people from another country aren't exactly hurting the system in any single way. They wouldn't be here if the work and the jobs were not here. So these people are not hurting our system.
Oh, really? Because
right.
there are 135,000 homeless people in the state of California. The overwhelming majority have no jobs, have no homes, are living outside, the overwhelming majority of them, and yet somehow there's a need for more low-wage labor in the state? Why shouldn't the state be attending to their needs before the needs of people who snuck in illegally from another country?
Well, they're not coddling. They're not helping these immigrants in any way. These immigrants are here.
You mean they're giving them driver's license? Well, slow down. They're giving them driver's license. They're paying for schools. They're paying for health care, infrastructure, and then they're saying the feds.
Immigrants pay taxes.
No, actually, hold on.
Yeah.
Every illegal immigrant working in this country is using fake federal documents illegally. That's a felony, by the way. You fake documents. They're not all paying taxes. You know that that's not true. But the point is, why should the state attend to their needs when you've got more homeless people living in California than live in the entire city of Dayton, Ohio? That's a lot of people.
Immigrants are paying millions of dollars in taxes. They are helping the state, and they wouldn't be there if there wasn't work. So if there's anyone's problem, are the corporations that are hiring these immigrants.
But what about the Californians who were born there, or who are naturalized Americans, who were born somewhere else but came here legally, who don't have work, who are, again, living outside? Why isn't their plight priority number one? Why is it that of the illegal alien? Why is that person's plight more important?
Who's to say their plight isn't number one? The undocumented person's plight isn't number one. It's simply being a sanctuary state means that they're not going to take the time from these people who will call in a crime, that they're not going to tell these people you're not wanted here, you're not working, you're not being productive, you're not helping our society. They're just saying be part of our community, call in the crimes, join our community, feel safe here.
Wait, hold on. Why didn't the governor just sign a law designed to help the more than 100,000 people living outside in California, the American citizens living outside, dying outside? Why didn't he sign a law helping them?
Well, he's helping everyone by making these people feel welcome in his state. He's helping everyone.
But how does it help? Hold on. How does it help Americans or Californians in this case without jobs to welcome people to work for less than they would make?
Undocumented immigrants are not hurting anyone's jobs. They're not taking away anyone's jobs. As a matter of fact, we need more worker visas for these people. We just don't have a system that allows year-round worker visas.
I'm sorry. I'm really trying to be patient. I'm trying to track with you logically.
Of course.
How is it that when you have a huge pool of people who are unemployed, it's helpful to those people, the American unemployed, to bring in a whole lot of other people and give them jobs? How does that help the unemployed in America? I'm
we know that
baffled.
what's hurting is that technology, and the manufacturing jobs are gone, and technology is what's hurting workers in America. It's not the undocumented immigrant.
Okay, so if technology is making all the low-wage jobs go away, then why are we letting in hundreds of thousands, nationally, millions of people with no skills, tech skills at all?
We have immigration's at an all-time low. So immigration
it's not at
right
an
now,
all-time low. That's a made-up statistic.
It's not a made-up statistic.
It
was actually bigger in the 70s.
Okay, but
so it is lower right now than ever.
That's not true, actually.
Yes,
I know the numbers. But let's just, in one sentence, if technology is making it harder for people who don't have advanced tech skills to find work, why in the world are our politicians letting in millions of people with no tech skills at all?
Well, because they're probably needed. They're needed. There are.
But you just said they weren't going to be needed because they're going to be displaced by technology.
Well, right now they are needed. These workers are needed year-round, and we need visas for these type of workers, and we need for them to feel comfortable in our country.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it.